And we're back at it with the Point Taken podcast. And today, I'm here, which doesn't matter, because I know very little about the subject material. Anna's here because she is the single most important person in the podcast. Second
Amen.
place goes to Lowell. And Hunter and Jeff are here because y'all asked to have good guests on, and they know what they're talking about. So let's clap it up for Hunter and Jeff here. Let's clap it up. Oh, I'm very excited. We've already had a lot of fun quoting Parks and Rec and all that stuff. Hey, look, at this moment, if Point Taken Podcast has benefited you in any way, would you please like, share, subscribe, do that stuff. Go find your favorite video from this season or from season 5, 4, whatever, and repost on your social media sites. Try to spread the word. We are simply trying to get out the message and tackle subjects that maybe aren't talked about too much on other podcasts. That's the whole point. And debate through them, work through them, talk through them to figure out how Christians should respond and how we should live and carry ourselves in the world today. So that is our goal. And today, we've got a fun one. Anna, what are we doing today?
So this was actually a listener question.
Yes.
Because this listener has a friend who participates in D&D or Dungeons and Dragons. And so he wanted to know if Christians should participate in that or like other types of video games like, I don't know, Halo, like the ones where you shoot people. What are some of the other ones?
Yeah, something like Call of Duty.
Call of Duty,
yeah.
like any of those, or like other types of fantasy play. So should Christians do any of that stuff? So Pastor Josiah and I are not nerds. So
No.
we got nerds on here.
But I speak
I would
nerd.
argue that,
I
yeah.
speak nerd.
I do not
I
speak nerd.
I speak
So-
nerd. You're married to one.
Yeah, but doesn't mean I speak it.
How do
I
you
don't
communicate?
understand. I don't understand what he says. It's like, I don't know what that is. Can you explain that to me? But so what's funny is I think all but one, two.
The listener question is
people-
Anna speaking about her.
No, hold on. I wanted him on, but he said no. But no, I think it's funny because all but 2 people in this room have played with my husband, D&D with my husband.
And there's
he was
7
like
people in the room, and the 2 people who haven't played with them are.
Oh, no, 3 then. Yeah, it's 3
Yeah.
because Dalton hasn't played either.
That was really sad. Why did you?
I forgot.
Just do it every
I was,
5
I was
development.
looking at you guys. Yeah, I was looking at
No, was
you
that
guys.
because you don't play that, or you were not invited?
He thinks he's too cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like he's
Like
one of
me.
he's like, oh, sorry, sorry.
To be
Danny.
fair, I was
I'd
like
rather
that.
throw a ball.
Oh,
Legitimately, I was like that in high school, early college. I would have said no. I wouldn't have been interested. So to
Because
be
you
fair,
thought it was lame.
yeah, didn't understand the I guess appeal.
Premise,
Yeah,
yeah.
I guess the appeal and the fun in it.
Yeah, the media makes it all just like
Yeah.
In the basement, like, yeah.
So let me
So,
ask
like,
you a
I probably
question.
wouldn't have
Capes
either.
on.
Before
Wizard
we get
head.
started, I've asked this question, I think on 2 podcasts, but there were non-nerds here. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
The resident nerds.
Stranger Things Season 1 Basement. Are they playing Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes.
There you
yeah.
go.
Got it. Now I've had my
Pause.
answer.
Now
They're,
you make
they're,
sense.
they're
They're
playing
every
extremely nerd.
Yeah, they
nerdy.
play it every season.
I tried to skip season 3 out of my mind since it's such a waste of a season, but I
It's
don't
fine.
remember it in
And
season 2.
and-
Okay.
And every season they're playing D&D.
Really?
Yeah. So
They're
all
playing
the
a
bad
board
guys,
game.
like all the bad guys, they're all names of D&D villains. So that's why they have all this
Of
joke.
actual.
Yeah. Like the Demogorgon. Like
Yeah.
that's a villain. that you-
Demogorgon.
But I was told that whoever the dungeon master is,
DM. Yeah, the
Very
DM.
good.
thank you, can make up whatever rules he wants, whenever he wants, whatever time he wants. Is
Yeah,
that
so
true?
that's kind of
In a
like the
way.
start. That's kind of like the start of my answer to the D&D part
So
of the question.
what is D&D though?
Yeah,
For us
okay.
that don't know what it is.
Right.
So the basic idea, the way D&D was created by a guy in like the late 90s. Basically what happened is the
Like
number
90s?
I didn't think it. I
Yeah,
thought it
early
would've been
2000s.
Stranger
I thought it was in the
Things is
70s.
set in the 70s, so that's false advertisement, anachronism.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. He is
Let's
older
look
than
it
that.
up.
He is
Yeah.
older than that. So basically what happened
look it
is
up.
he read Lord of the Rings. That was a great sense of inspiration from him. So
Tolkien.
yeah, Tolkien,
Ah.
absolutely amazing. But then he, in a way, quantified and qualified the races in Lord of the Rings. And so he gave personalities and attributes to dwarves, to elves, to goblins, to things like that. So basically, he just set up a structure of how to create a character and how to communicate action. So that would be dice rolling. So if I want to do something, I roll a 20-sided die that says how successful I was to do it. But in sense, the dungeon master sets a scene and me as a player responds to the scene. So we introduce all the content,
All the
everything.
dialogue.
At that point, it's improvisation.
Yeah, it's 100%
It's
improv.
guided improvisation because the dungeon master will have he'll have settings and sets and certain things that he might want to try and guide it to. So like if you fail here, then
So
maybe I'll
however
guide them.
the way to win is to do whatever the dungeon master set up for that day.
That is
Is
a
there a
way to
winning?
look at it. That's a way to look at it. It's more of, okay, a scene. Just take literally the Lord of the Rings. So let's say you have to defend.
I do speak Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. That's what I'm
So you
using.
got this.
Okay,
Yeah, I know.
so Gandalf coming down the hill, fighting that whole battle. Just imagine a scene and a challenge, right, from the villains. The villains would be the DM. He opposes some obstacle, or it could be, hey, you walk into a store. You know, you're about to go on a voyage. Maybe you should buy some supplies. It's like so.
So-
It literally could be whatever the
And
DM
you're
wants.
like, all right.
So it's not winning. It's more of moving the story along.
The allure of the game is that
progression.
if you play a video game or if you watch a movie, it has a set thing. Like if you're in a video game, you have certain objectives, you have a
Oh, that's
map
right.
or some type of place where you can't go here because you have to go finish the objective. But with Dungeons and Dragons, you're just put in a situation and you said, here's what's going on, and then you just have to literally pretend that you're in that world and find out somehow that you somehow make a difference and can stop it. Or whatever it is. So, like in our game, Donovan put us in prison. So we all just met in a prison and had to escape it. Then we found out like where we were, who was in charge, and
Yeah.
all that
So-
stuff. And we're just trying to fight
All right,
the
so
bad guy.
and if I may, the listener asked, "Should Christians play this?" What? Why would that question even be asked from what you two were just describing?
Okay, so kind of like as I was starting, no, that's a fair question.
No, it
it
is.
really
Yeah.
is a fair
No, it
question
is.
because as I was like kind of alluding to, but I guess the more direct way to say this would be because the DM and the players introduce all content and dialogue actions. If something unsavory happens, it would be because we introduce it.
So
if
some
I
folks
was-
do some dark stuff.
Right. So it depends on who you're playing with and your morals. You set the players and the DM set the rating. You set everything.
So rating like PG, PG-13.
Right, so-
It's like you go into a bar. I rolled to seduce the bartender. Like
Right.
you can do that.
But I found out
If-
that the DM has to act out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the funny part, but that's the important part you have to remember. It's like, okay, so if is anything unrighteous about it, well, that depends on who you're playing
Well,
with.
who's the
Right.
DM
That's
for the
what
guy
I'm-
y'all play with?
So it's Donovan, and what was really, really funny is
I would
when
love to see
Oh
him
my
act
God,
out
that
the
would
Wait,
be
does,
so-
is this in person or is that
no,
on the
it's,
computer?
unfortunately it's
You can do whatever
online.
you want.
How we played it was online.
Does
But
Donovan act this stuff out?
no, hold on, no.
let's
He
start.
when we very, very first started, he said, "Okay, rule number 1, and I'm not going to say this a second time." He said, "You may not roll to seduce anyone." He said, "I am not going to role play being seduced by you."
Yeah,
I said,
and his rule number
fine.
2 was like you're not allowed to harm or like I guess I shouldn't say the word troll. You're not allowed to harm or negatively affect another team member.
Yeah, because what could be really funny is if we're in a really big boss battle and,
I
I'm
like-
fighting with him and he's like in a really bad position and I could really save him and I say, I roll to slice Jeff's Achilles tendon,
Right.
which
So-
is allowed everywhere else.
I imagine there's a lot of potential for like demonic, false god,
Yeah.
magic,
It depends
dark.
who you play with.
Can be, yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Not with Donovan. I mean in general.
Right. It depends. So that's the whole thing about should Christians play with it? Well, it depends who you're playing with.
Would y'all play if it was that kind of stuff?
It lose appeal because the fun part for me
is who you're playing with.
Exactly. I tell that when people ask me is D&D fun, I say it is 100% who you're playing with. It is that is the whole picture. If you're playing with friends who all have a similar idea of how they want the game played in terms of limits, it can be so funny because y'all can do really goofy stuff and nothing is, harmful or unrighteous. It's all good humor, right? Because you can do whatever you want, but if you have people who go farther than you're willing to go, then it gets awkward. You're like, I'm not really
That's
comfortable
weird.
about this, and it ruins all the fun.
Well,
so
that was one reason why Donovan left one of those groups that he was
Right.
playing with, and Jeff told me this. because like Donovan and I just don't talk about that stuff. But he said that there was one person in the group. He was not a DM for this. He was just a part of the campaign. Is that what you
Right,
guys call
sure,
it? Right.
yeah.
That's so learning terms. And he said they were part of this campaign, and one of the girls within the campaign said she was going to roll to rape somebody. And he's just like, okay, like that's not what. And so it took the fun out of it.
Right.
Yeah, and that
didn't
would
know
be
that was a thing.
really crazy. That
Yeah,
would
I'm
never have
leaving.
happened.
Yeah, I'm leaving.
Said,
After that, I'm like, dude,
No.
y'all are weird.
But I
Y'all
will
are
tell
weird.
you,
I don't
like-
have a spell for that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna log out.
I just pop out. No, but one of the things that I enjoyed, like I was telling you guys before we started, is the room that he had his computer in at the time was like backed up to our bathroom in our bedroom, so I could hear, like, just hearing you guys laugh. And then there would be sometimes when I'd go in there, like, hey, I have a quick question, and I can hear on his headphones like all of the laughing just coming from that, and I'm like, oh, you and your little nerd friends having fun. I'm gonna go in here and watch TV like an adult. Have fun with that. And so he has his own thing, and but I don't know. I just never knew it could be like that.
Is this the
because-
same as Magic the Gathering?
No,
No.
not
Could
even.
not
Not
be farther
even.
apart.
Not even close.
Could not
However,
be farther apart.
I will
Simple
say
question. Simple question.
Could not be farther apart.
it
It
mimics.
can't- what do you mean it can't be farther apart?
Magic the Gathering is a card game that you play with each other, like you would. I mean, it's not like poker, but just think in that realm. And then
like
this is
Pokemon?
yes.
Much more like
God,
Pokemon.
that's such a better answer than Pastor Josiah. Good
welcome.
job.
Yes.
No, okay, so is that the
Anna.
one where they have like the 5 cards and they were
I don't know
like
how to
really, really
play it.
expensive? Donovan was
Wouldn't
just telling
they-
me about that. Sanderson. Do you remember Sanderson? He played the Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
He wore the thing around his
Yeah,
neck,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the card was valued at like $30,000.
So
you know which one I'm talking
That's a
about?
joke.
Yeah,
So
no, I'm
some-
not.
No, this is-
he
this
showed
is
me.
real,
He
bro.
showed me like
who
last
bought
night this
it?
card.
Oh my gosh, who bought it? Literally like 3 years ago, someone bought the
Alright.
most expensive Magic card. It's
So-
worth
so
$3
look.
million.
So sometimes
Stupid.
people
Pokemon cards are worth
rightly
Post Malone bought a $3
sometimes
million
people
Magic card.
rightly make fun of how much sports cards are worth.
Right.
Same idea.
But they are based off real people and their real attributes.
Yeah, but you can't really play or do anything
Okay,
with
sorry.
them. They're just
Right.
in a case
I got a
to
rookie
make
card.
your.
So the difference between what Hunter's saying and what you're saying is Magic. This card,
Magic the Gathering.
the creature has an ability. So it could be something of high value if you played it in a game. It could win
Yeah.
you the game. So it's actually
So is the counterfeit market for this card game probably off the roof?
I don't know, honestly. I'm not that into Magic
Yeah,
that
no
I know
clue.
the counterfeit game.
I've only played it once with Nick from your story earlier. He taught me when we were very young, and I was like, "That was cool. Let's play it again," and we never did.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
You aren't
how to
good
play.
enough.
No,
He said
it
no,
was
he
probably
sucked.
mostly my fault, but I was like, yeah. But what I was saying about Dungeons and Dragons, I think it's to Jeff's point, is that it kind of mirrors in a certain way real life, in that the choices that you make and the person that you decide to be really depends on where the sin comes from, right? So if you decide that you're going to be sinful in real life, then you're going to be sinful in real life. And if you're going to be sinful in the game, you're going to be sinful in the game.
So-
but you have the opportunity to choose regardless. There's nothing intrinsic.
Like Donovan, have you ever played and you were like, "Hey man, I'm not playing with you guys no more"?
Yeah, have y'all played with other
I've
groups?
only ever played with Donovan. That's the only experience that I've personally had with it.
Okay.
So I've only ever had the positive
So
experience.
you've never played, like, I know, isn't there like an actual board game version of this? Or like, is it, I know
I mean,
the
there are
new
sets
age
and-
is, I was like, I know the new age part is like the computer like you guys had done, but I didn't know if people still played.
I
with,
was
like, the
never
boards.
interested until Donovan asked me to be interested.
So here's kind of what happens. So you can buy, like, I could buy a map for like X amount of money. And in that map, there's a book for the DM, and it kind of walks through a story. So what a lot of DMs will do is they'll buy a book that has a story, and then they'll cross out and change things
Yeah.
that they want to change. And then they read it. Like, you have a map, you have a little character.
Like you're the narrator.
Yes.
Of the
So
story.
literally, you have your character, and they're like, "All right, y'all are in the Shire, okay?" And you start reading the beginning of Lord of the Rings. And you're like, "Okay, now a wizard, Gandalf, you know him. He comes into your house and asks you to go and do a dangerous quest. What do you do?" That's what Dungeons and Dragons. If you've never seen Lord of the Rings, that's what do you do? Gandalf came into your house. He asked you to help him on a dangerous adventure. What do you do?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah,
Is Boromir going with me? That's the question.
You look
Hold
at
on, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's a sin. Stop it.
you look at Boromir. He nods and says, "I'm with you, Frodo."
Oh, you mean
Yeah,
okay?
that's,
So like
that's
you're
literally
Boromir.
that's literally Dungeons and Dragons.
And
It's
you just
somebody's
respond.
posing.
What just happened?
Yeah, what
Prompt
somebody's
you.
prompting you to follow along the story or say no.
So obviously the questioner who
Is the
asked us-
DM.
No. The questioner to Anna has obviously seen a less tactful version of this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have asked the question.
Well, and I'll say this: when I was talking about it with Donovan for the first time or something here at church, there was somebody that came up and was just like, "Are you actually talking about that? Don't play that's sinful.
Satanic,
That's
yeah.
satanic, and it's evil." And so I was just like, "Oh shoot, yeah!" Because if you grew up in the 70s, 80s, and all that stuff, because it was the first mainstream bring into your house where you're fighting demons. Now we see it as the point of, wait, you're fighting demons, you're not worshiping them. But they see it as, that there's a demon in that game, therefore it's evil kind of thing. So there's a whole conception of it being, or perception, sorry, of it being demonic or satanic because there are creatures of fantasy in them.
Right. So in my mind, it literally is, if D&D is a sin, then literally by definition, watching Lord of the Rings would have to be a sin. Because and
Improv comedy would have to be a sin.
yeah, that's fair.
Anything improvisational would have
Yeah.
to be because intrinsically, you'd have to say that Dungeons and Dragons is intrinsically sinful, and
Yeah, because human beings are a part of it. So it's,
Right.
I mean, that's literally basically the idea.
But you can make it what you
Yeah,
want it to be.
I kind of view
Yeah.
it as what I was talking to Anna about is it's almost equated to the person who created D&D is like creating a language, like the English language. Now Anna and I get to have a conversation, and if we talk and gossip, that would be sin. But it has nothing to do with the person who created the English language, right? They just gave us a structure and tools to communicate
Right.
and follow, and then we chose to either do it correctly or incorrectly morally, right? So that's kind of more of the way I view D&D in the sense of, is it sin? It depends 100% on the players and DM.
okay, makes sense
Okay,
to me.
I think
So
we-
you have any other questions about
Yeah.
the nerd stuff?
About that one, no.
Yeah, D&D.
Okay.
No, I got that one.
You got
that one
it?
makes
Okay,
sense.
good.
Yeah.
Okay,
See,
so
what he's saying is,
yeah.
you make it as pure and fun as you want, or as dark as you want, and that's
Yeah.
up to you guys. And
Yep.
a Christian should not play the dark way, obviously.
Yeah,
But
whether they're
apart
the
from-
DM or a
cannot
part
choose
of the
the dark
campaign.
side.
Yeah, whether
But-
they're the DM or a part of
But
the
otherwise,
campaign.
just a bunch of friends having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because honestly, also, we didn't even mention it, but Donovan, our DM, also had a rule that you had to want to do in a certain way the right thing, right? You could do an honorable thing in a roundabout way, but you couldn't be like, okay, I'm actually going to turn evil and betray my party. You weren't even allowed to do that. You had to want to complete and defeat evil. That was like a base set line.
Right,
Your
I
character
had a-
had to want to beat the evil person.
I had a character flaw where I was a pirate, so if
He was
we
a
went,
thief.
You
yeah,
were
if we went
tempted
somewhere,
by-
I'm just like, all right, maybe I'll steal a couple of coins. You know what I'm saying?
That
Like,
boots
You get to
looking
pick your
good.
character.
yeah, and you
Like,
make the character.
Could Ron Swanson be in Dungeons and Dragons?
100%.
Yeah,
People do
depends
that.
on who your DM is. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know? So,
I was a pirate
Simon's
bunny.
like,
I was
So-
a bunny who was a pirate.
Josiah, so Donovan
Oh,
played one
that's
where he was
The bunny from Monty Python.
No, just
That's a cute little bunny.
So Josiah,
oh, nobody
Donovan,
ever listens to me.
Oh, it's just a cute little bunny.
Donovan played a whole campaign as.
My voice did not work there. For
No, it was really bad.
I'm trying to be the guy from the bridge. What was his name?
Tim.
Some
No,
call
Tim's the
me-
shrubber.
No.
No. Tim is the magician who shot the firebolts.
Yeah.
Right.
He said, "Some
right.
call me
Tim.
Tim."
I can't do his voice. Who's the shrubber?
Roger, the shrubber.
I thought it was Tim.
No, it's Roger.
I'll accept correction here.
Yeah, it's Roger.
But
I
what
was
were you
wrong
saying?
about Lord of the Rings, but I'm right about Monty Python.
Every time.
But yeah, so Donovan played Randy Savage. He played a whole campaign as a WWE wrestler. So like when the big bad guy, he tried like getting the bad guy in a full Nelson show.
Let me tell you something. Donovan one time, he said a quote. The cream always rises to the top. And I did not know who said that quote. And he pulled
Randy
his phone.
Savage.
He pulled
Really?
his phone. And he goes, Josiah, you're telling me you've never seen this video right here? Now, I
never.
assume
I know which video.
this is the guy from Spider-Man 1, right?
Randy Savage.
Randy Savage?
No.
I got you for 3 minutes.
Isn't that
You
him?
ain't going nowhere.
Is that him?
I have no idea.
That
can't
was a good
remember.
impression of him.
Thank
But he goes, and it was
can't remember if he's in
it was
Spider-Man 1.
Randy Savage who's like, the cream
Yeah.
always rises to the top.
Yeah.
Okay, he's showing you too.
Wait, that's where that comes
that
from?
guy.
Is that's him?
Yeah.
Is that from Spider-Man 1? Look
No,
at him.
this is just
No,
on Google.
no.
Bonesaw.
Spider-Man-
Bonesaw is his
yeah.
name in Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man 1, he had long black hair.
Yeah, I can't.
Bonesaw
He was fat.
is ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Macho Man Randy Savage was his
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah.
He's a
That
gem.
cracks me up.
Donovan cannot believe that I've never seen
Yeah.
the video of him.
That's a
saying
very
that.
famous like video.
He-
He's in that,
He's a goofball.
No
Randy
clue.
Savage is a goofball
And
character.
Donovan grew up watching WWE.
Yeah, I
like
know.
that guy
I've
was
never
strung
watched
out on
it. Yeah, I've
drugs.
never watched
Me
it.
either.
Yeah.
But
He calls it hillbilly soap opera.
yeah, that's exactly
So
what it is.
accurate. That's awesome.
Okay, so I think we've talked about D&D to death.
What's the other one?
I believe the question was fantasy.
Yeah, we
So
said
how do
like
we do
any like
fantasy in
video
general?
games or like fantasy. So did we want
So
to?
I guess fantasy in general is a tough thing to quantify because is Parks and Rec fantasy? Yeah, I mean it's fiction. So what fantasy has a
Fantasy
sense
is
of
I
have an
has a
answer
sense
for
of
you.
magic or like non-realisticness.
Yeah.
So I guess that's
say
the
fiction.
idea.
Fantasy
is
almost
magic.
always involves some type of ability or power beyond human ability.
Right.
Okay.
So there's usually has to do with some type of magic. For example, Arthur and the Round Table would be considered fantasy.
Absolutely.
Merlin.
Yeah. 100%.
You see what I'm saying? Like most of the time, if it's a fantasy or a high fantasy, there's going to be some type of magic.
Why did you say high fantasy?
Because it's just two different.
I've never heard that term. What does that mean?
Like extra fantasy.
So
Like Star
talking
Wars?
about?
So high fantasy is farther from realistic. So
My Little Pony. Like,
well, okay, that's hard to categorize.
That's getting into the
but
furry
yes.
category again.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Yes. So think of it more as
Like Harry Potter.
Avengers.
Have y'all not missed that laugh on this podcast?
I did.
Yes.
Yeah, me
I
too,
did.
yeah. You're
It
telling
was
me
so
Rapidash isn't real?
I guess the way to think
I
about
think
it
that's a
Josiah,
Pokemon,
is
actually.
Avengers is fantasy.
me tell
Lord
you
of the Rings is high fantasy.
Okay.
There's more magic.
I feel
and-
like there's more.
No.
that's how I would view it. And in terms of
Dormammu. I've come
I've come to bargain. Okay,
Y'all are so-
because we have a different. Because I would say Avengers is fiction, but because I feel fantasy has some type of setting issue and some type of
okay, that's true. That
and, like
actually is
high
fair.
fantasy is even more so.
That is true. Most time in fantasy, there's a different setting. It's not
like high fantasy is going to have crazy orcs and all these things,
Right.
whereas fantasy you're a person, but you can
Okay, so like Harry
You can
Potter.
just imagine how it would feel if I.
I don't know.
Was that Palpatine or was
That's
that?
exactly what my
that was
thought.
Palpatine
fingers.
My thought was Palpatine there.
Put whatever you want.
Visual effects. Can we have something right
Let's
here?
get Lightning McQueen shooting from my.
Ka-chow! Is that what he says? Ka-chow?
Yeah.
Ka-chow.
Maybe like
And
bends his
then,
wheel.
and then his antithesis, Kachiga, Kachiga.
So I think we've derailed, but in a fun way.
Okay, but you said fantasy, so that would be like Harry Potter because they are humans.
Exactly,
But they can
magic.
still have
Well, some are
magic.
mudbloods, but.
Well,
anyway.
yeah,
Still
but
human.
Well, they can still do magic.
Wizarding world of Harry Potter. They have like the different. What is it? The
Like 9 3/4 terminal.
I'm talking about the animals. I almost said python. What is it?
Oh, yeah,
Phoenix
like
The owl.
and the
phoenix.
owl. Well,
Oh.
the owls are real.
what's Buckbeak?
the
what's
owls are
Buckbeak?
just real owls.
Hippogriff. Yes.
Hippogriff.
Hippogriffs,
I couldn't remember
yeah.
Buckbeak, what he was.
What are the things that they pull up and they scream really loud?
Oh, the
annoying.
plants. Oh,
Mandrakes.
dude.
Yeah, they have things like
Roll
that.
is on it.
Where's
Lowell's
your
the
mic?
mandrake.
I'm about to say, where's your?
Where's his microphone?
Yeah.
Give the man a microphone. Come on.
Mandrakes, yes,
Yeah.
correct.
But so,
So-
that would be just regular fantasy, but high fantasy would
It's
be
tough. I don't.
Probably, I don't know. I've kind of always considered high fantasy has something to do with kingdoms and kings and
Yeah, a lot of
orc and
times.
stuff like that, like high fantasy. But I don't know.
So
I'm not the,
I think the question now becomes: So
Maybe part-
where is the line?
Yeah, where would
when
you-
does it go too far?
Yeah,
Okay.
especially with fantasy. And how
And
would you
You
participate?
have your scripture open, so obviously you have one example, but
I do have scripture open because because this conversation kind of reminded me of, a whole lot of people are against the idea of magic in the first place and say magic,
They
the
think
idea,
it's a cult.
Right,
Like
well-
occult. OUCC.
sinful,
Yeah.
sinful. So I would just like to point out, first of all, and this might shock the new Christian, that magic, in a sense, is very real. It exists.
sure.
That's right in here. Where's the camera? This is right in here. Magic. And there's never been recorded magic that has been non-sinful.
That is correct.
I'll also say that. And so I'm in
You're next. No, you're not.
no, I'm in 1 Samuel. Because I brought a couple of different things. So in 1 Samuel, Saul, who came after Samuel, he's the ruler, so the first king instead of judge, and he's having a bad time. He's not enjoying his life. Samuel's dead. God's not answering. Saul said, "God, show up," and he's not answering him. And so Samuel goes. Saul goes and he finds somebody. Let's see, 1 Samuel, this is chapter 28, verse 7. Saul then said to his servants, "Find me a woman who is a medium, so I can go and consult her." His servants replied, "There is a woman at Endor who is a medium." You may have heard the term witch of Endor. She's really a medium of Endor. Maybe she did to witch. I don't know. She's a medium of Endor.
Does she weigh as much as wood?
She floats, so you would
She's
have
a
to assume.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I couldn't help
Oh, look,
it.
she's dressed like one.
They dressed me up like this. Did you? I bet. We didn't even know.
This isn't
she
my
got a
nose, it's a
wart.
false one. All right, back to scripture.
Yes, sir.
Verse 8, Saul disguised himself by putting on different clothes and set out with 2 of his men. He did this because he said, "Don't be a witch."
He's the one that had them removed.
Yeah, he said,
Yeah.
"Don't be a medium, don't
Which is
be a
what God told him
necromancer,
to do.
don't be a witch, that's bad." And then he said,
Gonna utilize this.
let's go find a witch." They came to the woman at night, and Saul said, "Consult a spirit for me, bring up for me the one I tell you." But the woman said to him, "You surely know what Saul has done." So apparently he didn't just have on some fake mustache and glasses. I don't know what happened here. How he has killed the mediums and the spiritists in the land. Why are you setting up a trap for me to get me killed? Then Saul swore to her, "As surely as the Lord lives, nothing bad will happen to you because of this." "Who is it that you want me to bring up for you?" The woman asked. "Bring up Samuel for me." When the woman saw Samuel, she screamed. Okay, so we've confirmed Samuel's dead,
Yeah.
right? We're talking about bringing up. And then she saw him, and she screamed because she might not recognize Saul, but she surely recognizes Samuel. She screamed and then asked Saul, "Why did you deceive me, Saul?" But the king said to her, "Don't be afraid. What do you see?" So he doesn't see him. "I see a spirit form coming up out of the earth," the woman answered. Saul asked her, "What does he look like?" "An old man is coming up," she replied. "He's wearing a robe." Then Saul knew it was Samuel. Apparently he must have worn a lot of robes. And he bowed his face to the ground and paid homage. And then they had their little conversation.
Of which Samuel's not pleased.
Samuel's upset.
Why'd
He said,
you
"Why
bring
did
me
you?"
up?
Yeah, literally, and we see this in today. It's like, "Why did you disturb my
My
resting
slumber."
place?" Yeah, like that's what he had that moment. He said, "Why did you show up here? First of all, I already told you God's going to abandon you, and here it happened." And you know what I'm saying? So we see that it very much is biblical that we have. In this case, it would be, I guess, necromancy, because he's dead and brought up. It's not, and it's a spiritual medium. So from that, sometimes people look at the wizarding world of Harry Potter and say it is sinful. I have more, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say on that.
Well, no, I mean, he's right. Magic is the biblical magic, particularly of the Old Testament and the New Testament. We have Simon in Acts chapter 8, maybe. We have obviously the magicians of Egypt,
Yeah.
who are able to replicate a few, not all, but a few of the plagues. By the way, I've always found that it is amazing demonic power. they consider it a win when they can replicate some of the plagues that are being poured out on their people.
Yeah.
Like turning water to blood. Like, yeah, we can do it too. Not reverse it, but contribute
Yeah.
to the issue.
The chaos, the
and they
chaos.
consider that a win.
Yeah.
And then there's a few that can't. It is interesting to note which ones they can and can't. By the way, it's a little interesting study for you for
Yeah.
later. But anyway, yeah, they're clearly engaged in sin. So we have Simon who repents. And in the book of Acts, we have another time where one of the acts of repentance is people burning their old sorcery material stuff. So it's something they felt the need to repent of. So you're right that in the Bible there is no positive light. And I don't want to jump the curve too much. I think the difference is what Hermione calls magic is not what the magicians of Egypt were doing.
Very nice.
Yeah, I don't
What
think they had
Gandalf
wands.
is doing is not what is not the same
As a
source of
medium.
magic. But
Yeah.
I don't want to jump what you're trying to say.
No, I agree. I was just also going to bring up, I have a non-scriptural source. It's quoted in scripture, but it is not scripture. It's Pastor Josiah's very favorite book. It's the Book of Enoch.
There it is.
It's the Book of Enoch. Now, this is not scriptural. It very likely is not historical. However, I wanted to bring it up because there is I feel like it makes a couple of good points in regards to this and ways that we can think about it. So in the Book of Enoch, it kind of follows in the beginning chapters the fall of what they call the Watchers of Heaven, which are these groups of angels. I believe it was around 200 who ended up saying, the women of earth are kind of hot. Let's go down there and make them our wives.
Yeah.
Right? And so in chapter 7 of the Book of Enoch, which is not scriptural, it's not the Bible. Let's see right here. So, and all the others together then took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go unto them and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots and made them acquainted with plants. That's the first mention of where what could possibly have been the birth of witchcraft. They taught them charms, enchantments, cutting of roots, and being made acquainted with plants. And then it goes into specifically who taught what. This is chapter 8. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. And then the names of these fallen angels are just something else. I'm going to try them because it's fun. Simjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Armoros, the resolving of enchantments. Barakajal, Barack Obama? Barack Obama?
Don't do it.
Barack
You literally just had this removed from the algorithm
My
of
bad. No, I was
2,000
just
people.
kidding.
No, you just haven't.
Barakajal taught astrology. Kokabel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Arakiel, the signs of the earth. Shamziel, the signs of the sun. And Sariel, the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. So, arguments for astrology, arguments for, what constitutes what could have been, again, not scriptural, however, has existed for a very long time. What could have been, in a theory, the birthplace of some of that witchcraft and all that, and none of which described Wingardium Leviosa. It was the cutting of roots. It was, it was very much darker.
Doing potions to get certain spells done, and like you said,
The resolvement of enchantments implies
Yes.
curses, by the way.
Right, yeah.
Because you don't resolve an enchantment, you resolve a curse. It's basically, how do you break it?
so I guess the question that I have
My
is like,
opinion.
how would someone participate? Like, would this be different than witchcraft? But you're saying this is where you understand that witchcraft originated from.
If any of this is to be believed, that's what it would be stating.
And how is that different than fantasy? Participating in fantasy.
participating in fantasy because, okay, let me give you an example. Maybe this will help clearly cross the line. I know somebody who has meditation stones.
Like the crystals or whatever?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
okay.
crystals, meditation crystals, spiritual, who believes there is legitimate power in these stones. That is sinful to me. And I mean, that's palm reading,
Yeah.
fortune telling. What you're trying to do is use non-God but spiritual power to achieve something.
Yep.
That's a far cry from riding a Mickey Mouse ride at Disney World. That's not the same thing. Both may be in the realm of fantasy if we're talking about that, but one is because make sure everyone is fully aware. The spiritual world is more real than this world. The spiritual world, this is the fake one. Maybe fake's too strong a word. This is the temporary one, if you will. I mean, this would be the temporary abode, the spiritual realm. Someone posted the other day, and it's a good way of thinking. Humans don't have a spirit; they are a spirit. They have a body, and that gets the mindset right. We have a body for 70 years, and we'll have a body again, but it'll be a glorified one. The spiritual world is the real world, is the eternal world. Drawing on that power, the Egyptian magicians were genuinely able to do a couple of those plagues. They were genuinely able to turn their staffs into serpents. Okay? The Witch of Endor was genuinely able to call upon a spiritual power who was not Yahweh, who was not Jesus, to achieve a supernatural feat. Engaging in that, using that power, is where you cross a line that is wholly blasphemous and sinful.
Right.
That's a far cry from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. So
Okay, well,
that's what I would say.
Thinking about fantasy, it made me think about one of our previous episodes about the furries. Because that's a form.
Of course, you had to bring that
I
back
did.
up.
Because
I'm
it's a form. It's a form of
I'm just
fantasy.
so happy. I'm so happy
Pastor learned a lot
to
on
be
that
able to
episode.
hear that word coming out.
I made sure to bring it up just because you were
Yeah.
back on
Thank you
today.
so much.
And then when I made the comment about going to a Grizzlies game, and he mentioned how that would not help the scenario, I'm like, oh, okay, so we got to think through this one too.
But it makes me think of that because that is a form for some people of fantasy. But
Yeah.
then we also talked before we started rolling about LARPing, and you said you didn't know
I
what
still
that
don't
was.
know what that means.
So it's live action role play. So to me, my understanding is like you go to a park somewhere public and play like a D&D in person because it's just like role playing a script.
No,
right?
I
Like
saw
the
these guys at
DM.
U of M. You know the ones who put witches
Capes and
who have a
swords and
broomstick and are playing. Oh, what's the game called?
Quidditch.
Yeah,
Not
like that.
No,
kind
that's-
of.
I would say that's a
Almost,
little
but
different.
no. Most of the time when people are talking about LARPing, they have a group, they get together in a park, and they, it's sword and shield, bow, whatever, but it's all made of like cardboard, and they got pillows
Okay,
wrapped around
okay.
themselves, and they just go out there and
Wail on each other.
wail on each other, and they're just live action role playing,
Okay.
as if they were,
Okay.
in a war or whatever. But I feel like live action role playing is a little different from being, with the furry and stuff, because there's difference between fantasy and fantasizing.
Yeah.
Because fantasy, is involving yourself in a different world or reality, whereas fantasizing is kind of where in that way it's a lot more sexual, where it's just like you are trying to live out a sexual fantasy, whereas LARPing, if something around there is sexual, something's gone terribly wrong.
So
Could you imagine in the park?
good gosh. What you're saying there,
Picturing in the
make
park.
sure you said fantasy and fantasizing. So when any of us go to the theater and we watch a play, we have a willing suspension of disbelief. We understand that we're actually sitting in a chair in an audience, but we are pretending for a moment that, if nothing but for a moment, that or Death of a Salesman, this dude is really in front of us, and that it's not an actor,
Right.
Right.
Or if we want to pick a fun one and not have such a depressing one, we can go to a different
Right.
play.
Yeah,
But
I was about to
anyway,
say, like,
Wicked.
Technicolor of many colors or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the difference in what Hunter's saying there is there's an entertainment in which you are engaging with that which is being produced, knowing full well that is not actually you, and this is just a temporary entertainment, I think is what you're getting at. Whereas fantasizing is you're trying to make
You putting
fake
yourself,
your world.
Yeah, you're trying to put yourself within them.
and that's I guess that's my line between watching Harry Potter and trying to perform witchcraft, right?
Yeah.
It's like one is entertainment, one is my intent. I
Yeah.
think is the main difference. Is one, I'm trying to, as you put it, I'm trying to call on a spiritual power for some intent that is ungodly, right? Because if it was godly, then I would be calling on God. So I'm calling on some spiritual being, right, that is not God for power. And one is just literally like anything you watch, basically. Anything that is not real would be fairly close to, they would be in the same boat
In
as
other
Harry
words,
Potter.
everything except sports that you watch.
Right, yeah. It's
Well,
like,
like when I was in like
playing
grade
Mario.
school,
Mario would literally be on the same track, right? There's magic in Mario.
Okay,
so it's Super Mario.
Pokemon was really big when we were growing up, and I went to a private school at the time where they did not allow any type of like clothing or whatever of that because it was like a show about witchcraft or whatever. Like it wasn't.
Right.
And so my mom, in her spite, bought me Pokemon shoes to wear.
Oh, that's
to
awesome.
School, and she's like, there is nothing demonic about the show. It's little animal creatures, and like they go in these Pokeball
Yeah.
things. But then my husband was not allowed to watch Harry Potter growing up. His grandma would not allow him because she heard that it was witchcraft, but she
yes.
didn't know.
You
She
know
was
how I
going
do
by
that?
what people told her.
You know how I do that? Ava's not allowed to watch it yet.
Pokemon or Harry Potter?
Well, either,
which
but
one are we
Harry
talking
Potter.
about?
She will in a couple of years.
Yeah, because she can differentiate.
It's
fantasy
if you
and
want to
reality.
if you want to do the disclaimer thing, I'm about to say the truth out loud again. So
Whoops.
it's the same thing.
Truth alert.
Seriously, it's the same thing we've said before with Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Exact same thing. I do the same thing when we watch Avengers. I do the same thing when we watch what's the name of that? Encanto.
Mm-hmm.
I do the same thing when Christmas time comes around. Ava, we can go take a picture with Santa Claus at Bass Pro Shop. We can dress up. We can play games. We can go sit in the sleigh. You know, but that's not real.
Yeah.
And you know, with that one, I always tell her, I can look at my daughter and say, only God knows everything and knows when you're sleeping and awake, and look at her and tell her the truth. I don't like to give someone characteristics only God has and then say that's true. That's a problem for me, right? So, yeah, we'll watch Encanto, but you understand that Luisa cannot actually lift a church.
Yeah.
You understand? Tony Stark cannot actually. Well, he's a bad example,
Yeah, he's not a superhero.
but still. But his
Superman.
technology, whatever, right? Hulk can't really get strong because he gets mad. You know what I mean? But it's for fun. I don't mind that. Well, I think it's not overly ridiculous to put the same claim on humanity, right? No, you need to be the person God created you. You are not actually a cat. You are not actually Hermione Granger. Watching a 3-hour movie for entertainment is not the same thing as trying to become that thing.
Right.
100%.
Is that
Right.
is
That's
that-
my line. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
kind of-
that's the
logic.
line for me. Is what's your intent? Are you trying to become something, or are you
Right.
watching
or
a
call
show?
on something for power?
Right.
Right. That's a whole nother line.
Let's summarize.
Let's summarize. Go.
Summary.
Witchcraft, wizardry, magic. It's sinful in real life. I mean, if you are, breaking babies' bones and boiling it in a pot or whatever they do, like that's wrong. I feel like that's pretty obvious. It almost speaks for itself. But if you are an enjoyer of the fact that you're House Ravenclaw, I can't see how that would equate biblically. And she's gonna hate me for sharing this because she's changed. But my mother did not allow me to watch the television show The Fairly Odd Parents growing up
Oh, that was gold.
because
I love
it
that
was
show.
witchcraft. Right, and nowadays she's like, I can't even believe I ever. And I was just like, I know. She's like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, it's fine. I don't. It's a cartoon.
Took that
But-
part of your childhood away from you.
Right. But I was like, there's certain
Cosmo is
things.
the only, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Those are the only two.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was like,
What's his actual name?
wait, in the show?
Yeah.
Oh my god, Jorgen
Jorgen.
von Strangle,
Well done.
dude.
Landon watches it
John
weekly.
Lennon.
Darude.
It's been a minute for sure. Yeah, Darude.
Okay, but also to highlight and finish your point,
Yeah.
calling on a non-godly spiritual being for power, I think is also.
Oh, if you were actually
also-
doing that.
yeah,
Right.
that is
Yeah,
also
it's
like the
totally different.
right. That's the
Right.
trying to receive power, right? Not Acts 1:8, right? Not receiving power from the Holy Spirit, but trying to receive
Right.
power from something else.
Yeah.
Correct. And so
But I just to reiterate your point, I can watch Rocky, and not everything Rocky does is ethically acceptable in my mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I shouldn't try to emulate my life completely after Rocky Balboa.
Right.
But I can still watch it for entertainment.
Yeah.
So watching Harry Potter or trying to emulate that and actually call on a power, you understand what I'm saying? That would be where the line is crossed.
Yeah, and I think look, as parents making decisions like this, I don't think that you're scarring your kids or doing anything wrong by saying you can't watch that.
Right.
By saying no, because that's your job. That's your job as a parent, is to guard and to guide. But the thing is, you don't want to say no because it's witchcraft and you have no idea why.
Right.
Like
going
you have
off of
nothing to
other
back
people's
up.
opinions,
Right.
yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying.
Second round.
Let's make that different.
Differentiate.
Let's differentiate it, and let's separate these things and figure out. Okay, it's okay if you say I don't want to, feed that or spoon feed that to
Yeah.
the kids, because it could get the wrong idea, or you could also just communicate. Hey, here's the difference. Here's what this is.
Right. Well,
Yeah, the line of reality or play, when a kid can distinguish that really well, that helps you a lot.
Yes.
I'll never forget this kid came back from Universal after they finished Hogwarts. And I was working in the children's department, and he had a wand, and he kept going to Vada Kedavra.
Oh my God, that was about to say the
dang,
same
kill
thing.
shot, kill shot.
After like the first time I let it go, and then he actually got mad at a kid.
Oh,
Instead
and
of
then
Vada Kedavra.
Oh, yeah. That's a no go.
I-
If y'all don't
I'm
know
not
what
gonna
that
say-
spell means, it's like a kill spell.
That kid
It's
was
the instant
that
killing
kid
curse.
was too young to be watching that. I took the wand from him and threw it away. By the way, I gave it back later because I forgot I'd thrown it away.
I was about to say, dang, those ain't cheap.
We're on the same wavelength, man. I was about to say, like, if my youngest nephew had watched Harry Potter, there's a 100% chance he would try to kill everybody he saw.
Your mom told me a story about that kid
Yeah,
today.
this kid was
Totally.
this kid was like four or five maybe,
Yeah.
and he couldn't distinguish between reality.
Yeah.
So
I remember that. He was older than that. He was older than that. He was
older than that.
he was older
Maybe
than
in age. Maybe in
yes,
yeah.
that is
But
what people say. That's what people mean when they say older. They mean by age.
Yeah. Well,
that is
I don't remember him being I don't remember him being older than that, but I'll take your word for
Yeah,
it.
he was, because I don't think a 4-year-old is saying Avada Kedavra, but yes.
But
You don't know. They say
well, I
some
mean,
weird
they
things.
could say it real cute, like
They can repeat.
Why Southern?
Yeah.
Why Southern?
Avada Kedavra.
Why Southern?
Because we're Southern.
Why are you doing like a Southern
look,
Belle
at-
accent
at-
for the
I do it all the time. Oh, I'm talking about the children's.
children's?
The children's. At work now, we're a bunch of whole 26 22, 24-year-olds all in the middle. If it's closing time,
Even numbers only.
Yeah.
26,
Whatever.
24, 22.
We're all
Odd
way-
numbers are right out, baby.
we're all far too old for it. But whenever we're real slow, we'll grab random objects and sneak up and say, right. And I don't think we're sinning by doing that, right?
Right.
Do you ever do Wingardium Leviosa?
I know I do Wingardium Leviosa.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, man. If you've never seen Harry Potter, the first 2 are a waste of time. The next 6 are great.
Okay.
I disagree.
They're not waste of time.
They are.
Right.
Knight to E3.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but you have the greatest line in Harry
If
Potter.
you're older than 13.
Not me. Not
Hermione,
You. That's the
Do
greatest
you
line.
just not remember that scene at all?
They're playing
all
chess.
on the chess. And he
Yeah.
says, if I make my move, you're free to check the king. Oh, no.
Yeah. See,
What's he doing? He's going to sacrifice himself. Do you want to get that stone or not?
Yeah, I mean, the author just wanted to make a book or movie, whatever, for like a 12-year-old.
Yeah, it's
right.
just-
So they just get
Child.
older, right?
Yeah,
But I watched all of them in a 2-week time period at the age of 25, and
Right.
the first 2 were lame.
Same.
Yeah.
Tough.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah,
I was
that's the way
26,
life works.
but that's all right.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
way.
wait, no, I wasn't.
That's
I
the
was
way the
25.
books go. Is they're supposed to get darker and more adult.
Mature. It grows
Half-Blood
with the
Prince is
with
the best
age.
one.
Yeah. So
Obviously.
to be fair, that's what the author decided to do. So I don't think you're 8-year-old, but I would be more strict than the author. I would wait probably slightly later, but again, I'm not a parent, so you do you with what your children.
You know your child best.
Right. Yeah.
Don't curse people. Don't enchant them.
Yeah.
Don't cut roots unless you're cooking. Yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, like potatoes are roots,
Yeah,
carrots are
taters.
roots. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
There are a lot of foods that are roots.
Like ginger, right? Yeah, ginger.
Squash and zucchini are above ground, right?
Yes.
Hey, look,
Yes.
man, I'm not a
Yes.
Yes.
botanist.
Yes.
Garlic. Garlic.
I'm
Garlic.
not
Garlic is underground.
Yep.
he didn't say former. He's like, I'm not a
Botanist.
I would have loved
Is
you to say
garlic's below ground?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Really?
We have garlic
Goes
in our
in
garden right now.
cloves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's underground. And
I
then
would have
it's
loved if
Are
you
spread.
said
turnips,
arborist.
are turnips root?
Yeah,
Turnips
they're
are
root
roots.
vegetables.
But the rest of onions are
Beets.
fair. Beets.
No.
That's Cardiolactica.
Okay, onions are the bulb, which is underground, and then there's like stalk that is like
An
green
onion
onions
stalk.
are yeah.
Yeah.
But they're bulbs that are underground.
Just don't cut them. Don't cut them and curse other people. I don't know.
Eat the
I
onion.
don't know what to tell
whole.
you.
All right. Well, on that
Use
note, we've
discernment.
learned a lot about agriculture.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this episode
Towards
is
the
about, right?
end, absolutely.
New title is
Agriculture.
is agriculture a sin?
Is agriculture the staple of America or a sin?
If you made it this far, God bless you for sticking around. We love you guys, and until next time,
Deuces.
Look, man, I just found out about Santa Claus.